Hello, LE Diecast, and we're back. This will be the second part of our diorama that we're going to make. Now, if you watch the first part, you'll see that I started with a board, I carved down some foam, and I covered this with dental plaster. And go back and watch the first part if you want me to explain how I did all that. Since I filmed that, I have sanded this down a little bit more. The road bed down here is a little bit smoother. And I have taken a Dremel just with a coarse sand drum, and I've sanded down the high points in some of these parts and kind of carved in a little bit more rock formations into this. Most of what you're seeing here is going to be covered up anyways, so this is just the base that we're going to be using. So here in the next part, what we're going to do is lay down the road bed, and I'm going to start making the rocks that I'm going to use to decorate this. And again, it's going to be kind of a spooky, Halloweenish looking diorama. And if you didn't watch the first part, this is going to be a road down here, and there's a little road coming down here, and there's going to be spooky stuff up there. At least that's the plan right now. So I'm going to be using a few products we didn't use in the first video. First, to make my rocks, I'm going to cast some real rocks using this latex rubber. That is the brand I use, and you can use any latex will work. I particularly like this Woodland Scenics because it's kind of thick. It's real easy to work with. We're going to put that on some rocks and make some real rock castings. I'm going to use this Smooth It road system, and I'll put that up there so you can get all the information you need. That Smooth It is going to be used to make our road. It's self-leveling. You wouldn't have to use this. You could certainly use plaster, hydrocal, or just leave the base as it is. It's just I like it when I shoot the videos. I want to be able to roll the die-cast cars across it, and this will be nice and smooth. It's also very sandable, and it accepts paint really well. It does take a while to dry, so just a word of warning. And then I'm going to be using this lightweight hydrocal. I mentioned this in the first video. I hadn't dug it out of storage, but this stuff is really great for things like casting rocks and any details, in that it doesn't add much weight. It's really strong, and it accepts paint, and it sands really easily, and it's going to basically match the color of our plaster here, so when we paint over it, everything will take the color the same. So first I'm going to start by finding some rocks. I'm going to go ahead and get my rock castings underway. Those are going to take a while to dry. Then I'll put in the Smooth It. That's going to take a while to dry, and I expect that's where we're going to start our next video. So fortunately, if I leave my workstation here, well, if we need to find some rocks, you can see I don't have very far to go to find some nice rocks. So I'm going to be digging around out here in my fine rock collection that I have, and I'm going to find some rocks that I can use to cast from. Okay, so I picked out some rocks that I think are going to work pretty well. Basically, I'm just looking for any sort of interesting formation. The rock itself isn't going to be cast, only a part of it. So like this first part here. I'm just going to apply latex to the parts that I want to cast, and then I'll let the latex dry, we'll peel it off, and then we'll have a perfect rock casting that we can pour our hydrocal in. One thing you want to be careful with when you cast these is you want to make sure that you leave a fairly straight line all the way around the part that you want to cast. That's so the plaster doesn't leak out. So think of like a bowl. You need a nice straight rim across it. You can always add more and then trim it later if you want. Also, you can cast the entire rock if you want to, and then you could cut around the center of it and then pull those pieces apart if you want to. But I don't think I'm going to need that. I'm not going to need that many rocks. You can also flip these rocks upside down, vertically, horizontally, and all that. So you can get a lot of variation. Again, I'm going to use this latex rubber. I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a container here so I don't have to contaminate my latex. There we go. That's probably good enough. And I'm going to be using a very big cheap brush basically. I just need something with some pretty strong bristles so that I can stick that latex down into the crevices on the rock. I'll go ahead and start with this one, and I want to do that front end there. So we'll just get our brush all set, and I'm just going to brush this latex on. It will take a few coats, so just be aware it's not going to just take one coat. Depending on the rock and the type of details that you have, it can take quite a bit of latex, usually more than I think it should take. But you want to give yourself a nice strong mold. So you can kind of see, just to start with, it looks like an ice cream sandwich or something, but you want to get that rim all the way around nice and straight. And again, if you have to kind of overguess, it's better. You can always trim the mold once it's off. So that'll be our first coat on this guy. So it's kind of like a dipped strawberry. But that's what will peel off, and that's going to be our mold. Now, when these dry, you will need to prop them up on something, and we'll let that one dry. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and I'll meet up with you when I'm done. Okay, once these are done, and by the way, you can do two sides again, or the whole rock, and just split it down the center and peel this away. Once this is done, these would dry. Now the latex can take quite a time to dry, especially when it's wet. I'm going to go ahead and use a hair dryer on at least a couple of these, because it's really humid today, and see if I can't get them to dry a little bit faster, but we'll be back. Okay, while the rocks are drying, those latex molds are drying, I'm going to go ahead and put in the road. Now, like I mentioned, I'm going to use this Smooth It. It's Smooth It Road System by Woodland Scenics. I really like this. It does take a really long time to dry. It's probably going to take, well, it's really humid here, so it may take a week to really dry well. But the nice thing is it'll set up in about a day, and I can carve in details into it. It's kind of like ceramics clay in the consistency. So we have to lay out the road so that the Smooth It doesn't just pour all over everything. And what I'm going to use are these little strips of foam core. Now I've cut these myself. They do have a tape that you can buy that's kind of like a mounting tape thickness, and you can just lay it out. I don't want to do that. What's the fun in that? So I use this 99-cent store board. That's the brand. It doesn't matter. But Walmart 99-cent store cut this, or will carry it. And I just cut strips. The strips are probably about, what, 1/4 of an inch, maybe, thick. Doesn't matter how thick they are, because we're going to cover up the sides anyways for this. Now, what I'm going to do is lay this out. I'll try to get my hand out of the way there. I'll kind of lay this out wherever I want the road to be on both sides, and that's going to be the structure that the Smooth It's going to sit in. Also, try to make sure everything's about the same width, because then we can go over the top of it with a stick and smooth it out. Okay, so you want to make sure there's no huge gaps underneath your trim piece here, whatever it is you're using for trim. By the way, I mentioned I use this foam core. I just use it because it's cheap. It's really cheap. It's way cheaper than the tape that they sell for this. But you could use regular masking tape. I've seen people kind of build up little structures with sand, stuff like that. That'll work also. It doesn't also have to be exact. Remember, we're going to build the road up around the edge, so you're not going to end up with this thick piece here. And I'm just going to use this to kind of level the road a little bit. Now this is real thick for this, so I'm not going to go up to the top edge on it. Also, I really have no idea if this is perfectly level, so it's possible it may be thicker on one side than the other. I'm going to tape the edges here. I'm going to tape these edges right here and here and here so that it doesn't run out. I just needed to pin this back one down because it's a little uneven back here. I'll eventually sand that flat. So next we're going to mix up our Smooth It, and we'll put that in place. The Smooth It, the instructions say to make about 2 parts Smooth It per 1 part water. It does dry, so if you're off a little bit, it's not going to hurt it, but it should be pretty liquidy for the self-leveling to happen. And I wouldn't recommend mixing too much at once. So I may have to mix this in batches. That was good. But that's about what I'm going to start with. And we're going to mix it with about 1 part water, so we'll go up to about that line there. Okay, and you can see when we're done, it's pretty thin-ish. Kind of like thin plaster. So I'm going to let this sit for a second, like the instructions say. The instructions say to let it sit for about 2 minutes. That's so all the air bubbles can rise to the top. I'm going to start at one side. I should mention this is going to be an old road, and I kind of alluded to it before. I'm going to come back in when this is semi-dry, and I'm going to carve a lot of cracks and gouges into this road so it doesn't look so perfect. I'm also going to sand it down. So this top layer you're probably not going to see in the final diorama.